Dr. Charlie Rouse. He is a registered pharmacist, a doctor of natural medicine, and he spends every single day working with people, helping them with their health needs, and he knows natural products like the back of his hand. This man, there's not much you can ask him about any particular natural ingredient that he doesn't know about it. So tonight our topic is osteoporosis. I did some research on this. It's one of the top 5 health concerns that women face today. And so I asked Dr. Rouse to come on here tonight and talk about this, tell us a little bit about it and what we can do to prevent it and how our products can help us do that. So Dr. Rouse, I'm going to turn this call over to you.
Wow, thank you again, and we are ready, set, go. Maintaining strong, healthy bones. And we're going to talk about all that is involved in that, in the bone density and the bone strength. What does osteoporosis mean? The word means porous bones. The word osteo is the bone, porosis is porous. And our bones are in a constant, continual state of regeneration. So bones are designed by God to break down. That's called an osteoclast. And bones are designed by God to build up whatever is breaking down. That's called an osteoblast. And by the way, if the material that's going in to replenish the osteoclast, the breakdown, the osteoblast, if it gets out of sync, it'll form a fight, an osteophyte, and that's called a bone spur. Ooh, those things are misery. So we don't want to block. It's not a good idea to block the osteoclast or the breakdown, and it certainly is not a good idea to push too much cement through the hole, because eventually that osteophyte or that bone spur or that stone will become an aggravator to the heel or to the kidney or wherever it lodges. And bones break down. They break down every single day, and they build up every single day. And the deal is that osteoporosis is linked to a lot of systems of the human body. Hormones, the liver, the kidneys particularly. A lot of people had no idea that their kidney function is in direct correlation to their bone density. And all of it is tied together with a great big bundle called the immune system. They all have to work together, or the bones will not be good, healthy, flexible, bendable, pliable, and non-breakable. And whenever the bone is broken down on a faster than normal rebuilding rate, the bone becomes porous, and the bone becomes fragile, and osteoporosis takes place. And over time, if you let that go, a decrease in bone mass can cause a porous bone to become so brittle and fragile that even a small fall will break a hip or break a wrist. And some people ask me a lot of times, Dr. Charlie, when does the bone start breaking down at a faster than normal rate? And the answer is generally at age 22. So looking at it from a perspective of osteoporosis prevention, we better start while they are younger and not wait till they are elder. A much higher risk of fracture for those who have osteoporosis. And the bones that are most vulnerable are the hip, the spine, the wrist, and the ribs. Those are the ones that orthopedic surgeons see most often. Now, when we talk about osteoporosis, it's a major problem because over 30 million people in America alone are suffering clinically from osteoporosis. 80% of the major cases are women. 1 in 4 have osteoporosis, and 1 in 8 men have it. Now, that's 250,000 fractures a year related to the bone density. And 50% of those 250,000 fractures will eventually result in a major catastrophe because these people become able. And a lot of the nursing home admissions are directly correlated to bone density neglect. The major risk factors involved in osteoporosis are family history. So if somebody in your family has had more than their share of broken bones, look out. You have probably become a candidate. And a low stomach acid. People with porous bones usually have problems with low stomach acid. And you know what really scares me as a pharmacist? A lot of people are taking things like Zantac, Tagamet, Pepsid, Prilosec, Axid, all kinds of different drugs that lower stomach acid. And the lower the stomach acid becomes, the more severe and the more probable osteoporosis is. And people that are high stress, people that are up on the type A behavior, they're almost always more prone to osteoporosis because their bone is being leached of calcium on a regular basis. Then this free-floating calcium doesn't know what to do, and it can harden the arteries, causing heart attacks, or it can get discombobulated with the oxalate salts and the calcium salts floating in the blood, and it'll form a stone that can lodge in a heel or even in a kidney. People that are thinner, small build, lean body tissue are more prone to osteoporosis than the heavier set. Ladies who go through early menopause, 35, 40, 45 years of age, they go through that menstrual cycle cessation and they stop having a cycle monthly, they're much more prone to osteoporosis. Certainly people that live and lead a sedentary lifestyle, because exercise is a major factor in building bones. And women who have never had a pregnancy are much more prone to osteoporosis. In all smokers, we'll talk about the smoking aspect in just a moment and why it's so neglectful to the human body in relationship to the bones. And people that are high on caffeine plus sugar intake, and that goes for a lot of soda pop drinkers and even coffee drinkers who like to put an extra dose of cream and then sweeten it down with some kind of sugar. And we'll talk about the protein diet in just a moment, too, because there's a certain element where if you're too low in protein, it creates chaos and confusion, but also a very high protein diet is equally as detrimental to the bone density. On the next slide, we talk about the symptoms. Well, you know, just looking at you, I can't tell whether you have osteoporosis. Now, we can do a DEXA scan, we can do a bone density enhancement test, but most of the time bone loss occurs very slowly, and it's a silent type of symptomatic. And many people never have the first symptom until a bone is fractured. But there are some warning signs, and if you're already hitting these warning signs, we got to stop it in the tracks immediately because you're progressing at a much faster rate than the average. People who have back pain around the bottom of the shoulder blades, that's a clear sign of osteoporosis. People who find that their pain in their back is best relieved by heat, but if you put them on a flat floor, you know, like lay down on the carpet of the floor, and it really aggravates their back, aggravation by lying flat on the back is usually a clear sign of osteoporosis. Did you know that teeth can become loose because of osteoporosis? And there are people today who take prescription drugs like Fosamax and Boniva, hoping to fend off the bone density requirements at all expense. They're actually throwing their mouth structure into harm's way because Fosamax and Boniva can create bad dental health, extremely bad dental health. It causes a dead tissue problem called necrosis. people who have a loss of height. You measure yourself this year 5'9", next year 5'7". Osteoporosis has already set in. Ladies can have what we call a rounding effect of the upper back. Right in the upper back, it becomes a curvature of roundness. That's called the dowager's hump. It's osteoporosis. And because these people with osteoporosis, when they bump or fall, their bones fracture with very little stress. And sometimes when the vertebrae, the back portion of the bone in the back, begins to collapse, it'll pinch a nerve. And sciatica, the longest nerve in the human body, can hurt you from the small of your back, the lower back, all the way down to the bottom of your foot. So it is a major problem in itself. On the next slide, we talk about the causes for osteoporosis. And if we believe what the media tells us, we would surmise that the major cause is calcium deficiency. That is not so. Calcium alone will not reverse and certainly will not halt bone loss. The cause of osteoporosis is hormonal, and it has a direct correlation to the immune system. And when you factor in stress, and when you factor in a depleted nutritional protocol, this makes the scenario at its worst. And as I mentioned a moment ago, people with low stomach acid, they are always going to have much harder times absorbing any kind of mineral, whether it's manganese, boron, selenium, silica, calcium, magnesium, and in the calcium factor, sometimes they'll have as much as 10% less absorption. There's a hormone in the human body called calcitonin. We usually talk about estrogen and progesterone and testosterone when we talk about hormones. But yeah, there is a thyroid gland hormone called calcitonin. It's secreted by the thyroid gland, and it's very influential in preventing bone loss. So when we have a good, wholesome, healthy calcitonin level, the bones are going to be healthy. And we're going to talk about how to raise up the calcitonin level of the human thyroid gland. And because these hormones are directly related to the immune system, we're going to begin to really understand the factors that are involved in osteoporosis and how easy it is to whoop this stuff. Vitamin D is a very important factor in bone formation. D3, the cholecalciferol, the D3, the real McCoy, it interacts with the cells of your immune system, and when that happens, it starts reducing the inflammation processes. In natural biochemistry, we call these things cytokines. They have a little abbreviation, IL-1, that's interleukin-1, IL-12, that's interleukin-12. And man, oh man, when you let IL-1 or IL-12 start ruling the roost and getting loose in your blood, you're going to have inflammation all over. It's going to be headache time, knee ache problem, hip problem, back problem. It's like a fire, it's like a sweep of fire on the landscape with the wind blowing. And in some research circles, they're actually beginning to think like they should have thunk a long time ago. Osteoporosis looks like it even has a secondary link to autoimmune diseases. That means that the immune system is overreacting. It's firing upon itself. It's creating more of these inflammatory responses. And because stress comes along, everybody tends to have their own medical stress. They're worried about their physical health, their financial resources, their children, their family, their marriage. This stuff breaks down your bones, and it throws calcium, and it throws the wrong stuff in your blood, and you can form fights and stones much, much quicker when they're floating through the blood. The inflammatory cytokines like the IL-1 and the IL-6 are very detrimental to bone density because they cause calcium to be osteoclast. They pull calcium right out of the bone, right into the blood. And when stress comes along with this pulling effect, it'll cause your cortisol, the hormone cortisol, to skyrocket. And that causes the IL-1 and IL-6 to go even higher yet. And when IL-1 and IL-6, the inflammation cytokines, go higher, 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 they'll cause even more calcium to be pulled from the bones. And then when the cortisol level goes up and the cytokines, the inflammatory hormones are going up, that's going to cause the anti-aging and the immune-regulating hormone DHEA, the good stuff, to go down. And when DHEA goes down, weight gain comes on, inflammation is a factor every day, and the brain begins to take a beating. This is where things like dementia start. On the next slide, we actually talk about an overactive immune system, like in autoimmune, and why they're looking. They're now figuring that osteoporosis is a first cousin kin to autoimmune problems. See, we used to loop lupus and multiple sclerosis and different things like that, rheumatoid arthritis. We throw that over there in the autoimmune problems. But what's happening is people with osteoporosis, they're little Pac-Men, they're little macrophages. They're going around and they're gobbling up the invaders in the course of their daily surveillance. But unfortunately, when these little Pac-Men get engorged and they have to eat so much stuff, they'll start spitting out interleukin-1 and massive amounts of nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is necessary, good, and wholesome in the right quantity. But you let nitric oxide get out of balance and get out of whack, it'll start tearing the bone down. See, nitric oxide will build a bone up in the right amount, but a high production at a wrong moment in time will cause the bone to break down. And you start adding drugs like Fosamax or Boniva to the pharmaceutical regimen, this reduces the nitric oxide to such a dangerous side effect level. You see, Fosamax and Boniva are made with bisphosphonate, the salt of bisphosphonic acid. Now, bisphosphonic acid has its purpose. It's a perfect shower stall cleanser. It's a soap scum scrubber. And if you want to clean your bathtub, use a bisphosphonic acid. But for goodness sakes, for me, I wouldn't swallow one if you paid me, because I know that you have to drink a lot of water when it goes down, and you can't lay down after you swallow the pill because it'll burn the esophagus. Bisphosphonic acid, great for cleaning a tub, but sorry for building a bone. And nitric oxide is in the similitude of like vitamin D, in that when in balance in the correct amount, they will literally regulate bone growth. Now, on the next slide, we're going to talk about estrogen and the bones, because estrogen actually protects the body from high levels of these cytokines, these IL-1s and IL-6s, the inflammatory problems. Now, you bring in the woman here, and all of a sudden she's under stress. So she's got a problem with adrenal exhaustion. Or you bring a woman in who has had a hysterectomy, post-hysterectomy, and now we start measuring. We find out very quickly that stress in this woman is equal to hysterectomy in this woman. They both have a problem with low estrogen levels, and now because of that, they're running very high in the interleukin-1, and that's going to promote bone loss. And because bone loss is a factor, and the estrogen ratio is so low and the progesterone levels are beginning to drop, the interferon, the good gamma interferon that prevents bone loss is lost in the scenario. So now the speed of the bone loss is faster and faster. And we go back. Stress, adrenal, speaks to sister thyroid. And the thyroid hormone, thyroxine, is the activator for bone breakdown. And people with hyperthyroidism, too fast a moving metabolism, too much thyroxine, they're breaking bones down way too fast. Or on the opposite spectrum, where we have given them a prescription drug like Synthroid or levothyroxine to control their hypothyroidism, their low thyroid, the drug most of the time squeaks, and it puts too much thyroxine in their blood, and that causes a bone breakdown. So yes, you heard it right. This is a pharmacologist speaking, telling you simply that Synthroid can easily raise your thyroxine levels too much and cause bone loss. And even without any prescription drugs, people that are subclinical low thyroid, they're tired, puffy eyes in the morning, slow metabolism, skin is dry, hair is falling out, fingernails are breaking. These people are already having a problem with thyroxine levels that are subpotent and therefore also promoting bone loss. So when you look at it, God really has fearfully and wonderfully made us so that we have to get this thing in balance. Now, here's some drugs, prescription drugs that weaken the bones, diuretics like Lasix, hydrochlorothiazide, antacids. I mentioned the Tagamet and the Zantac and the Pepsid a moment ago, but also that goes for Malox and Riopan and that kind of antacid. Anticonvulsant drugs like Trileptal or Dilantin, Depakote, those particular drugs weaken the bones. Warfarin, that famous blood clot buster called Coumadin, warfarin, it is a detriment to bone density. Lithium, people that take lithium to balance their mood swings, bone density problems. So you look at all of these, and we have a lot of pharmaceuticals that are contributing to bone weakening. People that smoke, they definitely increase all of the bad inflammatory immune factors, the IL-1, the IL-6, the IL-12, the IL-8. Smoking causes cytokines to run rampant in the human body. So it promotes bone loss. Hyperparathyroidism, that little parathyroid gland in the brain, you let that rascal get out of whack, it'll cause your bones to break. It'll leach calcium right into the blood. And, you know, the Asian and the Caucasian are much higher risk than other factors of human life. Hypothyroidism, I mentioned a moment ago, excessive alcohol consumption, people that are too lean, people that don't get any exercise, people that don't get enough sunlight. These people are very much prone to bone problems. And then when we talk about calcium, the human body requires twice as much calcium as it does magnesium. So people who take a magnesium supplement day in, day out, in relationship to no calcium, they're actually suppressing and causing bone loss. They're letting their calcium and their magnesium ratio get out of whack. You should have a 2-to-1 balance on calcium and magnesium, 2-to-1, including potassium. And whenever this happens, when magnesium rises in the blood, it'll decrease the production of thyroid hormone, calcitonin, which is the bone saver, which now causes bone density problems. So magnesium in excess is a calcium blocker. It's a bad thing. It blocks the osteoclast. And there are times, by the way, that you need a lot of magnesium. People with restless leg syndrome, constipation, painful periods, heart palpitations. So there's not a set thing to say, don't take magnesium. This takes good professional counseling. On the next slide, we just talk about the bones. So I'm going to wrap it up. Bones are exceptional living tissue. Bones require a whole lot more than just calcium. Your bone density is requiring vitamin K, magnesium, manganese, boron, silica. It has a lot of things. And bones require a whole variety of these minerals and trace minerals. But they also are very needful of amino acids. So here's what we're preventing. Osteoporosis, that means porous bones. Osteomalacia, Malacia means pain. So osteomalacia means painful bones. Can you press your shin bone without hurting? Can you press your forearm bone without hurting? Can you press the bone in your sternum without hurting? If it does hurt you to press any one of those three bones, you very likely suffer with osteoporosis and osteomalacia. Now, osteopenia is actually the beginning of these bad bones. So if we catch osteopenia first, you won't ever get osteoporosis or osteomalacia. And I mentioned earlier that an osteophyte, that means an irregular buildup. That means you got too much calcium in the blood, not enough manganese, boron, silica, vitamin K. And that'll form a spur or definitely turn into a stone. And the prevention for osteoporosis should not be put off until it requires attention. So beginning at age 22 specifically and being very therapeutically throughout, we need to get started right away. So the question is, have you remodeled lately? No doubt, now is the time. Now I'm going to give you some simple health tips. Reduce the consumption of your coffee, sugar, and alcohol. Definitely eat a whole lot more of that green stuff, green leafy vegetables and broccoli. This little seed called the sesame seed and the sunflower seed are very bone density, fine builder-uppers. They will help log in all of the good stuff. Stop all soda pops, diet or otherwise. The phosphoric acid is a major leacher. Reduce your salt intake. Even when you use sea salt, you need to put less salt just to season it enough for taste, because salt increases calcium loss. And then you got to maintain a healthy protein. Now for women, the average protein content should be somewhere around 50 grams per day. And for a man, we're going to need more, 63 grams for men. Too much protein, go way up high, 100 grams per day, and it'll deplete the calcium. But also, too little protein will prevent the collagen formation, that which holds the backbone and the knees and the hips together. So in order to get this thing right, you need to eat more green stuff and really reduce the amount of animal protein, but get more from the legume, the peas and the beans. Just get it all good. And as you're beginning to get healthy, go ahead and make a resolution. I'm going to get a little more exercise. I'm going to walk. I'm going to do some weight-bearing exercises. And I'm going to be heart healthy and really cut out the high saturated fats that not only promote heart disease, but bone loss. And we told you about the interleukin 1 and 3 and 6 and 12 and 8, smoking. You can quit. I know you can do it. And if you'll take advantage of good health, it'll all happen. So now we've given you what is an osteoporosis, what is an osteomalacia, what is an osteopenia. And here comes the best part about it. Out of all the supplements on the world market, and I'm including all the calcium supplements and all the stuff they sell in all the drug stores and all the wholesale stores all over the world, the two best, absolutely perfectly unionized and synthesized and put together stuff is green and is life. This is going to ensure adequate amino acids, perfect balance of trace minerals, all 70 of the essential minerals that you need, and I guarantee you that with Is Green and Is Life to the rescue, you'll reduce bone loss and protect against bone fractures in a major way, because the Is Life Is Green is going to increase the calcium absorption. But the nice thing about it is the cytokines, the interleukin 1 and 6 and 8 and 12, those things that promote calcium loss and inflammation in the body, you stop it with Is Green, Is Life. And if you want to inhibit the inflammatory responses of that interleukin 8, which actually promotes calcium loss, this is a fantastic nutritional combo. So inhibiting the pro-inflammatory things like prostaglandins that are known to promote calcium loss, you'll benefit. And anytime you can enhance better vitamin K1, better osteocalcine, better things that make the bone mineralization, it's in Is Life. This stuff is immune system balancing. Is Life helps the immune system to really participate. The Is Green is going to give you the function of all the necessary building blocks. The Is Life will show it how to go to work. So increasing bone strength, it's just a matter of putting two things together that work synergistically to help in the absorption, better D3 absorption, better manganese absorption, vitamin K absorption, all the magnesium and calcium in the proper ratio, 2-to-1. You don't even have to measure it. It doesn't even matter how many milligrams are in it. It's not a matter of who takes 1,200 milligrams of calcium per day. That is bad science, old science. It's a matter of who gets the proper blend in the right ratio. And if you want to mimic the most beneficial effects of estrogen, mimic now, not give yourself estrogen, but to mimic the power of estrogen on the bones, you bring in better boron, and that's in Is Green. And when the boron comes to service, the Is Life will show it how to lay down. So the important thing for the formation of the bone and the collagen is the dynamic duo of Is It